Welcome to the News9 Plus Show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. Pakistan goes in for a general election on the 8th of February. There are political parties in the fray and there will be polling. But there's a difference. The most powerful person in Pakistan for decades has been the army chief and not the elected prime minister. It's almost like being in a monarchy. A series of khaki-clad monarchs continue ruling with no accountability to the people. Regardless of who wins, there is only one party in power, the Pakistan army. Politicians are just puppets. When did Pakistan become a puppet show? And must India worry? Joining me on the News9 Plus Show tonight are Lieutenant General D.S. Hooda and Sushant Sareen, my colleague Deepak Bhadana. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus Show. General Hooda, I want to start by asking you, how does General Muneer differ from his predecessors, General Bajwa and General Rahil Sharif, the three puppeteers of Pakistan in the last decade or so?
So fundamentally, Sandeep, I don't think there is any difference. So always the Pakistan army and the Pakistani chief have carried out what is political engineering in order to see that the person that they favor is in power. It happened to Imran Khan, and right now what you're seeing is Nawaz Sharif, who was earlier ousted, is now become the favorite of the Pakistan army chief. In fact, his daughter Mariam said openly in the rally that it was the Pakistan army that has brought back Nawaz Sharif from England. So I don't see much change, although this time, frankly, I mean, what Muneer and the Pakistan army has done to try and dismantle PTI is something unprecedented. The defection that they've engineered, the arrest of leaders, the fact that PTI doesn't have a poll symbol, four prison terms that have been awarded to Imran Khan. So I think he's taken things a step further.
He's taken things a step further. And Sushant, while we're talking about the elections, I mean, who has a worse job in Pakistan today? Is it General Muneer or is it going to be Nawaz Sharif, who's most likely to win the selection tomorrow, or the election, sorry?
Sandeep, I don't know who's going to win. The speculation is that Nawaz Sharif is likely to come out on top, but you never know. Pakistani elections have had a habit of pulling off nasty surprises. Will we see another one tomorrow? We don't know. Probably not. The odds are not in favor of that. But I think anybody, I just tweeted something today where I said that, it's not a crown of thorns anymore. It's a bed of nails with bombs underneath it, all waiting to go off. So or a bed of nails on a minefield.
Right.
So I think everybody is, their neck is on the block.
Right.
If, for example, Imran Khan's party was to pull off some miracle and get about 60-70 seats, then Asim Munir's neck is on the block.
Right.
If Nawaz Sharif wins, his neck will perpetually be on the block. So, frankly, I don't know why anybody wants to become prime minister, because, after prime minister house, you go straight to prison anyways. So.
Okay. It's a bit like Russian roulette, right? I mean, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
It's a Pakistani roulette. Yeah?
Pakistani. So what does a Pakistani roulette look like? The minefield underneath, you have one bullet in the chamber and minefield below and a bomb above you. How does that work?
I'm not one of those who's very fond of, pointing a gun to my head and pulling the trigger. But I think the Pakistanis love doing it. They love to take their chances. It's a great time while you are in power. And then, it's a kind of a hangover of, the high of power.
Yeah.
But they're kind of adept at it. Nawaz Sharif is do it 4 times. Imran, I don't think General Hooda is being unnecessarily pessimistic about Imran's future.
Right.
I'm sure Nawaz Sharif is going to shoot himself in the feet within a couple of months, maybe a couple of years. And then Imran is going to come back. And all the cases against him are going to be off, provided Asim Munir is not in power. Because between Munir and Imran, it's personal. So
Absolutely, it will be personal. And Deepak, I'm going to ask you about this, but before that, very quickly to General Hooda. So I watch a lot of science fiction films, and there's a category of Hollywood sci-fi actors who are the only ones to have been killed on screen by a predator, Terminator, and an alien. right? So Nawaz Sharif is the only prime minister in the world probably who's been ousted by a president, by a chief justice and a general. Now, even if he returns to power, what are the chances that he's going to complete his term, or will there be a fourth category that we haven't known who's going to come out and, send him back to prison or exile him? What are the chances that he'll complete a full term? No one in Pakistan has completed a full term.
So Sandeep, going by history, what you are saying is right, and I completely agree with what Sushant has talked about, the bed of nails. There are three crises which are facing Pakistan today. So there is a political crisis,
Yes.
massive instability, and I'm not pessimistic about Imran. Frankly, he remains quite a popular leader, and
Yeah.
even if Nawaz Sharif wins, there is a lot of talk about the fact
Right.
that a lot of people in Pakistan are not happy. So I think the political instability will continue.
Right.
The economic instability will continue, although Asif Munir seems to have invested personally in it,
Yes.
calling businessmen. The
Right.
economic crisis is not going away.
It's not.
And finally, the internal security problem that Pakistan is facing, massive, not only from the TTP, but
Right.
also from the Baluch separatist group. So, all these three crises are not disappearing despite, what we are speculating that Nawaz becomes the prime minister. He still has an extremely tough task, and I'm not sure how we'll be able to execute it.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
So
It's like
how long his tenure lasts, we
yes.
don't really know.
So confluence of problems and troubles, battalions, troubles marching in battalions. It's like the poly crisis, that word that came out recently. The poly crisis that Pakistan is facing. Deepak, you've been tracking this very closely. Crore commanders and all that. Pakistan. We were talking about earlier in the day, right? If free and fair elections were held in Pakistan, there's no doubt that Imran would come back to power with probably sweep the elections, given his. What are you hearing?
See, one of the things is whoever wins, they're headed for a very difficult course.
Right.
Right. Now, the whole hybrid model that the army brought in with Imran Khan was essentially the idea that the army would still remain in charge, but they won't be responsible for, restructuring the economy, paying back the debts.
Right. The fall guy is the politician.
The fall guy
prime
is the
minister.
politician.
Yeah.
And the fact is, like, in a vicious cycle, the powerless prime minister is also, unable to deal with any of those issues. So Pakistan is like stuck in a repeating cycle, And this has gone on from the very beginning. I mean, even in the early 90s, you had Benazir being replaced by Nawaz Sharif, who was then replaced by Benazir.
Absolutely, yeah. It's
right.
not that far ago.
As far as elections in Pakistan are concerned, I think the very first election, when Fatima Jinnah actually stood up for elections, there was political engineering even back then.
Yes.
Right. In fact, as we recall, the only free and fair elections in Pakistan were during General Yahya Khan's time. And that
1970, the election that changed Pakistan, completely altered the geography and politics of Pakistan.
So they're damned if they do and damned if they don't.
Sushant, the interesting point that the only free and fair election in Pakistan was 1970. And we know what happened after that, just one short year after 1970. But, from India's perspective, Nawaz Sharif is seen as someone who can do, at least in Pakistan, do business with India. You think that his coming to power there kind of alters this, the hostility that we've been seeing between India and Pakistan, and for good reason?
Okay, I'll come to Nawaz Sharif in a bit. I just want to challenge this thing about only one election which was free and fair, 1970. And we say that because it threw up a result which nobody expected.
Yes.
But the army had actually tried to prepare the electoral battlefield in a way that they will get a result of their choice.
Right.
That it didn't happen is a history now. But the fact is that there have been other surprises in the past. Despite all the jiggery-pokery that the army indulges in, beyond a point you can't fix an election. That is one. Secondly, I think prime ministers are not exactly very powerless. Imran wasn't a powerless prime minister.
Yes.
He was just a stupid guy as a prime minister, right? He had been advised by the army to do certain things. He refused to do it because of his vindictive nature, because he's vacuous, and because he's very insecure in many ways. So he didn't do it, and he had to pay a price for it. But on the Nawaz Sharif question, very quickly, look, I think we are living in cloud cuckoo land if we think Nawaz Sharif can deliver. Number one, he is going to be coming in with a mandate that is going to be heavily controlled by the military. And there is the military interference, as General Hooda was also suggesting, has increased by leaps and bounds. The military is now even controlling municipal functions. So even municipality is not in the hands of elected politicians, right? So to expect that Nawaz Sharif is going to break the straitjacket and actually reach out to make peace with India, I think we are delusional. Number two, please read his manifesto. Very clearly, he says that India needs to turn the clock back on Kashmir and the constitutional reforms out there before anything can happen. That's not going to happen from our side. Number three, and most importantly, please follow what the actual rulers in Pakistan, the Pakistan army, and their attitudes toward India. We are living in a time warp if we think it's the Bajwa doctrine which is continuing. It's not. Bajwa doctrine died the day he retired. Today, it is Asim Muneer, who is an Islamist, makes no bones about it, who is actually the shots. And please go into the speech made to students just a couple of days back, where he spoke all kinds of nonsense about Hindus and partition and what have you. And if you think that you can make peace with that kind of a joker, then good luck.
No, that's a very important point there, Sushant, that you made. General Hooda, the fact that the Muneer Doctrine seems to be very different from the Bajwa Doctrine, and the Bajwa Doctrine was more in favor of, establishing friendly ties, relations with India.
Some semblance of
some semblance of a working relationship with India and all that. But the Muneer Doctrine, as Sushant pointed out, the kind of statements that have been coming out of Pakistan of late, very hardline kind of thing, he's managed to simultaneously anger Afghanistan, Iran and India at the same time. But what do you think is going to play out in the next couple of years? He has about a year and a half left, that going by the normal service tenure. What surprises can we expect from General Muneer?
Yeah, I don't think we can expect any surprises. As Sushant has very clearly brought out, you need to look at the statements and you need to look at the situation on the ground. And the statements that have been coming out about Kashmir, very hard lines and stance that they have adopted, which obviously India is not going to accept. On ground, you are seeing an uptick of violence, particularly in the Jammu region. You've seen some increase in infiltration. I dare say, if this continues, the one good thing that's happening, which is the ceasefire, good or bad, whatever way you want to look at it, even that could sort of come under pressure. So unless we see some fundamental changes in attitudes of the Pakistan military, and I don't see that, I don't think we are going to move ahead towards normalization of ties.
There won't be any normalization of ties. But what, Sushant, before I come to you, Deepak, Sushant, one point about Pakistan being the bridge between the United States and China. Now that started in 1970-71. But now, given the fact that both China and the United States are strategic competitors, and the US has no interest, at least it doesn't appear to have any interest in the AFPAC region. Where does that leave Pakistan today?
So that's a fundamental problem for Pakistan. They've been trying to insert themselves in Iran and Saudi Arabia relationship and maybe make moolah out of that. They've been trying to say that we'll play bridge between America and China. But look, America and China needed Pakistan as a bridge at a time when they were not talking to each other. Now they're very much talking to each other. They have relations, all kinds of engagement. So Pakistan will look for some kind of a geopolitical, geostrategic leverage, which brings in the moolah all over again. Free money starts flowing in. But ultimately, until and unless they fix the structural problems, both in the polity as well as in the economy, and this brings me to a point General Hooda kind of pointed out when he said that, there is the political, there's the economic, and there's a security crisis. The problem is not that all these crises have come together. The bigger problem is that all these crises are actually mutually reinforcing each other. And in a death spiral of sorts where you don't know how to handle any or all of them. And that is where Pakistan is at. They have no ideas on how to do it. There's some stupid idea they've come up with, a SIFC or something, which has been done in the past as well. It doesn't really work beyond a point. And as far as Asim Muneer is concerned, you're being presumptuous to say that he'll retire in a year and a half. In fact, that is the time you need to look out for, when probably the conflict between him and Nawaz Sharif or whoever else is Prime Minister is likely to come. Because he needs an extension, Ta Hayat as they call it, till the come. And Nawaz Sharif at least probably will not be inclined to give him an extension. So there that is where we are going to be at
That's
a year and a half from now.
A year and a half from now, General Hooda, November 2025 is when General Muneer is supposed to retire. But, and it's very likely that he's going to get an extension. Or everyone in Pakistan, all the chiefs have got extensions. But do you foresee a possibility of some kind of conflict with India, or some kind of a terror attack? I don't forget the fact that he was DG ISI when Pulwama happened. Do you see that Muneer would want to kind of assert his hardline Islamist credentials, as Sushant was mentioning, by testing us once again?
Sandeep, I mean, trying to predict something that's going to happen a year and a half later. What I can tell you is what I personally sort of experienced, and that was in 2013.
Yes.
And when we suddenly found an uptick of violence happening, 2012 was considered the most peaceful year in insurgency in Jammu and Kashmir. And suddenly, 2013, you see an uptick in violence, ceasefire violations, cross-border attacks that were happening, particularly in the Jammu region. And some of us wondered whether it was related to the fact that Kayani was to retire that year.
Right.
And was this some way of putting pressure? So, as I said, I really can't speculate on a year and a half. Just go back and look at, some of the trends that happened, which, I personally saw when I was there.
Right. And with that, we come to the end of this discussion. Thank you very much, General Hooda, Sushant, and my colleague Deepak Bhadana. Pakistan's puppet show continues as it has for decades. It's only getting worse now with the economic troubles and terror attacks. And we will be watching the elections very carefully to know who it throws up. Will it be Nawaz, as is widely predicted, or some other candidate that we don't really expect to be Prime Minister? But thanks for watching. It's been 3 months since Hamas launched a horrific terror attack on Israeli civilians, triggering off an Israeli retaliation. Now, the war in Gaza still continues, and it's fast spreading across the region. Saudi Arabia just issued a very strong statement calling for a two-nation solution and for a halt to the war in Gaza. Joining us now is Ambassador Talmiz Ahmed, India's former envoy to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Ambassador Ahmed, welcome to the News9 Plus show. Ambassador Ahmed, I want to start by asking you, Saudi Arabia said no diplomatic ties with Israel unless it recognizes an independent Palestine, and it's called for a halt to the Gaza war. What are your comments on this statement?
There is a degree of public posturing involved here on the Israeli side. This is Israel's stated position, and it has been their position over last several decades. This has also been the Saudi stated position, at least over the last 2 decades, when Saudi Arabia came up with the Arab Peace Initiative. That everyone knows that if there is to be a settlement of the Palestine issue, it has to be based on Palestinians being given a state of their own, where they can live with sovereignty and dignity and commercial viability. This is not acceptable to Israel because of the messianic view of some of its extreme right wing who believe that God has given the Holy Land for the exclusive use of the Jewish people. Therefore, this land cannot be shared by Jews with non-Jews. The non-Jews should either be exterminated or enslaved or exiled. This is the messianic view. As of now, Netanyahu has affiliated himself with the extreme right wing of Israel's political spectrum, and obviously he is parroting the views of the right wing. There is a small opinion emerging in sections of Israeli opinion, of Israeli political order, which says that, look, we have to settle something with the Palestinians. What those details are, we don't know. But it seems to be we have a long way to go. What the Americans have done in this scenario is never seriously insisted on the Israelis that they should come up with solutions that are real and take into account the realities of the political order. That has never happened, because just as much as the Americans viscerally despise the Iranians, they also at the same time provide total support to the most extreme postures that the Israeli leaders may come up with from time to time. So I would blame the Americans as the root cause of the problem. As far as the Israelis are concerned, they keep on stating what they believe in, and the Americans seem to follow suit, and therefore you find that the problem doesn't ever have an ending, doesn't have a resolution. They wanted to have relations with the Arabs without addressing Palestine. I think the Gaza war has pushed that back further for the time being.
What happens to the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor that's held up because of the Gaza war and this standoff between Saudi Arabia and Israel? Now, IMEC was announced at the G20 summit last October.
I want to make it very clear to you, this corridor is a mirage. It has no basis in reality. It was an American initiative at the time of the G20, and they got certain countries to support it. But if you look at, and at that time it was projected as a great diplomatic victory. What does it actually mean? It actually is an attempt by the Americans to integrate India with certain countries of the Gulf with Israel. And that's not going to happen. It was not going to happen earlier. Does it have any economic viability? Certainly not. India is already extremely well connected with West Asia, particularly the Arabian Peninsula. We have trade, they are our number one trade partner, and with the countries of the GCC, we are exporting huge quantities of goods. They are our number one export destination, and we are also getting huge quantities of energy and other goods. We have a solid connectivity already. Where the Arabian Peninsula is concerned, for the last 20 years, they have been looking at a railway project that would link the countries of the peninsula. Where does Israel fit into any of this? When it comes to exports of the region, as of India, we all are using the Red Sea. Why do I need to tie myself up with Haifa? So there is a very robust and substantial connectivity both by air and by ship, and now in terms of the virtual connectivity through technology. It's already in place, worth billions of dollars. The region doesn't need this wretched corridor. It has no basis in reality. It is completely worthless, both in terms of geopolitics and economics.
How successful do you think the United States will be in resolving this standoff between Israel and Saudi Arabia, given the fact that the US is heading into a re-election this year?
Whether there was an election or not, I do not recall in the last 30 years the Americans have taken any initiative or pursued any plan or project that the Israeli government doesn't want, the Israeli government of the day doesn't want. So it is not the United States that determines its approach to the Palestine issue. It is Israel that determines its approach to the Palestine issue, and the Americans follow suit. It is a mantra which we are now tiredly repeating, oh, the Americans are the only ones to influence Israel. Theoretically, yes. In practical terms, there is no evidence that the Americans have ever exercised this capacity that we believe they have.
Thank you, Ambassador Ahmed, for those comments. The IMEC is the casualty of the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza, and that's one of the reasons that India is directly affected by this spreading conflict in West Asia. Amish Tripathi's new book, Idols, Unearthing the Power of Murti Puja, was co-written with his sister, Bhavna Roy. Now, the book traces the origins of idol worship. Amish says idol worshipping cultures have been attacked for the last 2000 years. He talks to us about why India is among the last surviving nations keeping the tradition alive, along with Japan. Now, in an interview with my colleague Ashish Sharma at the Jaipur Literature Festival 2024, the best-selling author says Indians need not be defensive or apologetic about Murti Puja. Let's listen in.
I think there was a tide of history for the last 2000 years. Many idol worshipping cultures were attacked. Much of the ancient world was actually primarily idol worshipping. Most of them died out. Most of them were killed actually. India is among the last surviving idol worshipping cultures. Japan also survives. China has lost quite a lot, but they're still one of the few surviving idol worshipping cultures. Many others are dead. And perhaps it's a carry over of that history of attacks, of defensiveness. So many temples were destroyed across the world. What happened in India didn't just happen here, it happened across the world. And as among the last surviving idol worshipping cultures, I think it's our duty to bring out the beauty of idol worshipping. Because the philosophy at the heart of idol worshipping is a very beautiful one. Because at the foundation of it is that we see everything as divine. At the heart of idol rejecting is this belief that the divine is outside of the universe, that there is a difference between the creator and the creation, and that the divine is a male god, a single male god, and everything else is profane. The universe is profane, which is why you cannot find anything divine within the universe, including idols. Whereas the philosophy of idol worshipping is that we find everything as divine. This is a very beautiful philosophy. It actually leads to innate liberalism, and which is why I think we need to explain idol worshipping. First to many Indians, because many educated Indians have themselves forgotten this, and then to the rest of the world. This is a very beautiful philosophy. There's no need to be defensive about it.
Your book, can you tell us a little more about how you approach this subject?
So, Idol is essentially a book that I've written with my sister, Bhavna Roy. So, this explains the philosophy of idol worshipping. And it's a companion edition to our other non-fiction book, Dharma. And it's a non-fiction book, but it's been written in the format of the Upanishadic Socratic dialogues. Socratic dialogues were also like this. Even our Upanishads were written in the form of dialogue. So you have different points of view, and through that debate, we try and communicate the philosophy of it. So the book isn't prescriptive. It's not like ordinary Western-inspired non-fiction books, which will have just one point of view. This represents different points of view, and you as a reader can read all of them and then make up your own mind. Absolutely, then that was a part of the Indian way. Even the Bhagavad Gita, if you think about it, essentially it's in the format of a dialogue. There's a question and answer between the seeker Arjun and the Guru, the God, Lord Krishna. And if you remember in the 18th Adhyaya, in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna tells Arjun that I have given you knowledge most profound. Now you think about it and do what you think is right. That is the Indian way. There's a innate liberalism, and the control is in your hands as an individual, not in the hands of God. God just gives you the knowledge, and you make your own choices.
A few days ago, a special court in Bengaluru ruled that jewellery worth crores seized during the case against Jayalalithaa should be returned to the Tamil Nadu government. Now, the court also ordered the government to pay 5 crore in compensation to Karnataka for the expenses in conducting the disproportionate assets case. Joining us on the line from Bengaluru is my colleague Vajihullah, who's been tracking this case, and my colleague Kartikeya Sharma. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus Show. Vaji, gold, diamonds, rubies, emeralds, totaling 468 items, a 1.5 kilo gold belt with 2,389 diamonds and 18 emeralds. I mean, what's going on? Where is this all kept? Is this in the treasury of the government, or how long has this been hidden?
Well, this has been lying with the Vigilance Department of the CID, and it's been there since the disproportionate asset case came into light.
Right.
Now, Jaya was somebody who Jaya was a 14 year. She was the chief minister for 14 years of Tamil Nadu, and the disproportionate asset case, which brought her to the courts, which happened in 1996.
Right.
During that time, the CID had seized a lot of properties, including her post garden house, the Kodnad estate, and the gold jewelries and everything that she had, and it came up to 2,200 crores, a whopping 2,200 crores. If we do a conservative estimate of that today, now these properties have been lying with the Vigilance Department, and recently a special court in Bengaluru had said that this should be given to the Tamil Nadu government, and the Tamil Nadu government should give Karnataka government 5 crores for the expenses it incurred during the hearing of that case.
Right.
Now there is a little. Now we have a little idea about what will happen to the property. But all this while, the properties of Jayalalithaa was seized by the authorities.
Right.
So far, her nephew and niece, Deepa and Deepak, have been given the post garden house. But
Right.
the rest of the properties have not been handed to them because the court says that these were Jayalalithaa got these through illegal means and by cheating the state. So this cannot be handed over to them.
So Karthikeya, this is a very interesting thing. You know, this entire disproportionate assets case, we talk about it today, there are ED raids on corrupt chief ministers and all, but this is literally the case that redefined political corruption in India, right? Jayalalitha's.
You know, the disproportionate asset case, I would say, is important because, you know, you could pin down an important politician like Jayalalithaa. It is inconceivable 5 years ago for anyone to say that, well, you know, we are going to go after someone like Karnanidhi, or we're going to go after MGR, we're going to go after Jayalalithaa. They were not popular, but they were also powerful politicians. They not only controlled their parties, but they could sway a segment of civil society. And such was the, and such is the characteristic of the Tamil politics, that, you know, you have the cadres having a say in newspaper union mill. So, you know, the power pervades in various civil society institutions. But the difference between the ED raids and the way this disproportionate asset case happened is, it took place over a period of time. Unlike ED, where the politicians are whisked away in a matter of weeks or days or a month, I'm not using the word months, this took years. It happened after a long time. And thirdly, there was transparency. ED allows the government or the, you know, the people who are investigating the case to do things as they want to, because the onus to prove yourself innocent is with the victim. It's not with the ED. ED has to charge you, you have to prove yourself innocent. But she went through a very normal process of law, in which lower court, upper court, to and fro, the documents in public, write-ups. You know, do you have write-ups, for example, on Hemant Soren? Has anyone gone through the details of those cases? Because it's not like that. You know, there is no civil court.
Nothing is in the public domain.
There is no civil court involved. You know, there is a way you report a corruption case in a civil court. You can write it like that, the way 2G was reported. The way a coal scam was reported, you know.
There are a lot of
there are a lot of people.
Documents out in the public domain.
But ED is a different, it's a different beast altogether. And the cases are very different. So I would say that Jaya's case also proved a point that, you know, powerful politicians can be tried. They can be brought to books. You know, no one is untouchable.
No one's untouchable.
ED on the other hand has become politicized because opposition politicians are involved. But then, you know, when I was interviewing Prakash Javadekar day before yesterday, he said for him the biggest takeaway is that in the third tenure, not only there be more raids, but the action would be quicker, conviction rate would be higher.
That's a promise.
He said that's the biggest takeaway of the PM speech. In the parliament, higher conviction, and quick trial, and more raids.
More raids, my God. More
raids. Corruption ke issue pe everyone will be taken to task.
Everyone will be taken to task. But, you know, Vaji, since you're there in the south, you know, Jaya's confidant Sasikala laid a foundation stone for this memorial for Amma near the Kodanad Estate bungalow. Now, Kodanad Estate is another big fascinating aspect of Jaya's political career. The fact that you could fit 3 Vatican cities in the Kodanad Estate, this gigantic thing. What's the status of that coffee plantation that she owned?
Well, Kodanad Estate was first taken by George in 1976, and after that it passed on to a lot of hands. And in 1991, when Jaya became the chief minister, is when she really liked the Kodanad Estate, and she asked Sasikala to buy it. So 1997, at the tune of 7 crores, the Kodanad Estate exchanged hand to an unknown person. And after a few years, Jayalalithaa had the possession of the Kodanad Estate, which today is a whopping 700 to 800, 1,200 crores, I suppose. That could be the
over
price of that
Right.
acre. And over 1,000 crores, exactly. And the Kodanad Estate is a huge coffee tea estate, and what we see over there right now is it is seized by the government, the CID especially.
Right.
But the work is still going on. So the work
Yes.
that's going on in the estate and the economics and the money that comes out from the coffee estate goes to the government. So the government has the charges of the Kodnad estate. Though Deepa and Deepak had staked claim for the estate, but the court in the special court in its hearing had said
Right.
that the estate cannot be handed over to the nephew and the niece, though they are class 2 heirs of Jayalalithaa.
Right.
Only the house can be given to them, but other properties,
The post garden
your jewelries
house
cannot be handed
right.
over to them. Yes.
So it's run by the
post garden
government.
is the house.
Yeah, but Karthik,
Yes.
you know this. What happens? I mean, while we are talking about all the properties that Jaya had, and which is now in various hands, it's become state property, and I'm sure that all these, you know, gold and diamonds and rubies will be in some state museum, if not in a go down. But what happens to her biggest legacy, which is the AIA DMK, which she inherited from her mentor?
Yeah, actually, that's the key question. You know, it should worry. It should be a cause of worry for people who do not create second line of leadership properly. Now, you see, there's a problem with dynasty because it's not the end thing.
Yeah.
But dynasty in regional setup also provides stability.
Yeah.
You peter away.
Continuity,
You peter away slowly. For example, TDP.
Yeah.
The son is not as charismatic as Chandrababu Naidu.
Yeah.
But then he can take over the party and run it without any rebellion.
Yes.
He can survive 5 years, 10 years, even 15 years.
Yeah.
Like Akhilesh can survive with his 108 MLAs for next 10 years also, till he becomes irrelevant.
Right.
Like Chaudhry Charan Singh, Ajit Singh,
Yes.
Jain Chaudhary.
Jain.
But then if you do not create leadership and if you have not a dynasty, you are a single, then you have a problem like this. For
Yes.
example, the party disintegrates.
Right.
Because it has not created institutions
Absolutely.
within the party.
Yeah.
Now, Naveen Babu's party.
Yes.
Do you expect an IAS officer to succeed him? No, it's not possible. Once Naveen is out of that political stage, the knives will be out.
Yes.
Or for example, what happens in JDU.
Right.
But then DMK, despite being out of power for so many years,
Yes.
it could come back.
It could.
Jagan's party. Now, if you look at the party of Uddhav Thackeray, Bal Thackeray's party, status has dwindled. But another dynasty has started.
Yes.
Eknath Shinde's son is in
And
Lok
his son.
Sabha.
Absolutely.
He's in Lok Sabha. So I would say that, you know, family, sociologically, family is a vehicle of social mobility.
Yes.
In Anglo-Saxon society, families are not used for social mobility.
Right.
In South Asian cultures, they are modes of social mobility.
Right.
So it's a different. Now there is a problematic side to it because the coffers of these regional parties are so big that the families want to control them.
Yes.
In 70s, mergers could take place.
Yep.
Hota kitna paisa tha? 1 crore, 2 crore.
Yeah.
Now, can you imagine SP merging with JDU? You know, the coffers would have like 400 to 500 crore rupees.
Right.
Who would let go of that money?
That's right. So it's a power base, it's a power
Because
center,
that money
it's a financial,
sustains
it's
the
like a
lifestyle of important
bank.
politicians.
Absolutely. But so what happens to AIDMK? Already you're hearing a lot of politicians have been drifting away towards the BJP.
BJP wanted to, first of all, they had a lot of plans, wanted to come close to
Right.
ADMK.
Right.
Then they wanted to consume a part of
Yes.
ADMK, which they did in last 24 hours.
Yes.
Or they wanted to take the place of ADMK.
Right.
So that's what happens in organized parties.
Right.
So basic problem with ADMK is that there is no charismatic leadership.
Yes.
And there is no outsider right now who's claiming it to be its own. That is
Right.
one problem. But I think the larger issue is that they have to deal with a very entrenched family politics of DMK.
Right.
So only an outsider can break it now.
Right.
Someone who takes over ADMK,
Yeah.
like an MGR,
Right.
and then gate crashes DMK's party.
Yes.
There is no one to gate crash DMK's party. That is the problem.
Right.
Like Eknath Shinde gate crashed Uddhav Thackeray's
Yeah,
party.
so he's
He
an
said,
insider,
मेरी party है,
ultimate
मैं
insider.
हूँ auto rickshaw वाला,
Right.
मैं लेके जाऊँगा. That's a
Yes.
different story. He also has a farmhouse where strawberries are grown and there's a helipad. But it's the picture in the mind of people that matters.
Yes, it's a picture in the mind of the people that matters, and of course the picture that came from Tamil Nadu that we saw many years ago, the gold, the diamonds and the rubies that Vaji has just told us about, which is the government has asked to transfer to Tamil Nadu and of course pay that compensation. But as Karthikeya mentioned, the bigger legacy of Jayalalithaa is her party that she inherited from her mentor MGR, the AIDMK. What happens to it? We know what happens to the gold and the rubies and the thing. We really don't know what's going to happen to the MGR and Jayalalithaa driven AIADMK. That will be the story of the Tamil Nadu politics for the next couple of years. You can watch our special story on Jaya's jinxed millions only on the News9 Plus app. Download and watch.
In India's legal system, prolonged trials sometimes outlast the accused. At times, the accused passes away before the verdict, leaving us with a question: what happens to their tainted fortunes? News9 Plus looks at the biggest cases against criminals, politicians, and scam artists and their accumulated wealth. Allegations of money laundering related to a land fraud case have also brought former Jharkhand Chief Minister Hemant Soren under the ED's radar. But we begin this series with the charismatic and enigmatic Jayalalithaa.
In a courtroom showdown, 8 years after the death of Jayalalithaa, her jewels are back in the spotlight. A special court in Bengaluru has ruled that the valuable jewellery seized during the disproportionate asset case against Jayalalithaa should be returned to the Tamil Nadu government. Plus, the Tamil Nadu government must pay a 5 crore compensation to Karnataka for the expenses it incurred during that legal proceeding. In this gripping expedition of the fate of Jaya's asset, we promise to be as captivating as the Iron Lady herself.
From Periyar to Annadurai, MGR to Karunanidhi, Tamil politics has been a nursery of larger-than-life personalities.
Jayalalithaa ennum.
But no one has been as enigmatic and as influential as Jayalalithaa. Her rise to power is a tale of fate, betrayal, intrigue, and controversy.
I think she knew where to keep whom, and because it's handling a state, being a chief minister, it's not small. It's not a small job.
And there cannot be anyone like Puruchi Thalavi Amma. We fondly call her as Amma. Amma is Ma.
From a child artist to a superstar to serving as the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu for more than 14 years, her rise was remarkable. But Jayalalitha's political legacies includes many unanswered questions and unsavory episodes. And it all began in 1996 with a disproportionate asset case.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.